Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're taking on something really big. We're going way back, tens of thousands of years. Our goal is to explore, well, humanity's very first stories, the absolute origins. We'll be looking at everything from, cave paintings to the first epics, maybe even the first attempts at what we'd call fiction today.
Yeah, and from an anthropological viewpoint, these aren't just like historical artifacts, but more like blueprints. They show us the earliest ways humans tried to make sense of things, death, love, nature, just each other. Looking at them really gives us a glimpse into sort of the architecture of human consciousness, how storytelling became so central to who we are.
Blueprints of human consciousness. I like that. So thinking about that, what's the very first thing that strikes you? What were they really trying to grasp first? That's what this deep dive is all about, finding those key insights, those surprising bits of information from the sources you've shared. We want to guide you through it all. Okay, so let's get into it. Where do we even start? Logically, it has to be before writing. Before, well, almost anything. Let's head to Indonesia, Sulawesi specifically. There's this amazing cave painting. We're talking at least 51,200 years old. It shows these three sort of human-like figures and a wild pig. You picture someone doing this by firelight, right? Sketching with red ochre. It's incredible.
And archaeologists are pretty convinced this isn't just a random drawing. It's meant to tell a story. Now, the exact story, maybe a hunt, maybe something more mythical about humans and animals, we don't know for sure. But the intention to create a narrative with these figures interacting, that seems clear. It makes it the world's oldest visual story we've found.
And what's really mind-blowing is the age. It predates Lascaux, the female French caves.
By over 30,000 years.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
And even the next oldest narrative art, also found on Sulawesi, is about 3,000 years younger than this one. That really shifts things, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And anthropologically, this is super important. Storytelling is fundamental to human evolution. It might even be part of why Homo sapiens succeeded. But finding hard evidence, especially this early, it's incredibly rare. Oh, and there's another piece from Sulawesi too, a bit younger, maybe 48,000 years old. A frieze that's been reanalyzed. It shows the Saurianthropes, human figures with animal parts. Some researchers think this might be our oldest clue about humans imagining supernatural beings. That's a massive step in how we think. It predates the German Lion Man figure by maybe 8,000 years.
Wow, imagining the supernatural that far back. And how do they even date this so precisely? I read they use this laser technique, vaporizing tiny bits of the mineral crust over the painting and analyzing radioactive uranium decay within that crust. Pretty high-tech stuff for ancient art.
It's cutting-edge science meeting deep history. And the location itself is telling too, the cave. It's way up high on a limestone cliff, hard to get to, and no signs of people just, living there.
Yeah.
It suggests creating this art was special. Specific activity, maybe ritualistic, done in these remote places, away from the everyday grind.
Makes sense. Okay, so from these incredible visual beginnings, let's jump forward quite a bit to the dawn of written stories, specifically wisdom texts. Let's talk about the Instructions of Shuruppak. This is Sumerian, early 3rd millennium BCE, so maybe around 2500 BCE for the oldest copies we have.
Right, and Shuruppak is fascinating. It's basically a list of sayings, advice from a king, Irupak, to his son, Dusudra. You might recognize Dusudra's other name, Napishtim, from other stories. The whole point was teaching proper behavior, good values, keeping the community standards intact. Pretty common goal in the ancient Near East, actually.
It feels surprisingly familiar, some of it, like ancient self-help almost. And the format is so concise, just a few lines of cuneiform. You get practical stuff like don't put your field on a road or don't dig a well in your field, people will mess it up. Sensible, but also moral advice like don't mess around with a married woman. The slander could be serious. Seems like reputation was a big deal.
Oh, hugely. Fear of public opinion, you could call it.
What's really interesting anthropologically is seeing this written intent so early. Using direct speech, giving moral guidance. It's a narrative with a clear social purpose. And if you look at the bigger picture, some of these ideas, these precepts, you see echoes later in things like the Ten Commandments or the Book of Proverbs. It shows this long thread of shared human values about how to live together.
That's a great point. And didn't you mention Shuruppak himself has a connection to another major story? He's listed in the Sumerian king lists as the last king before the big flood, right?
Yeah.
And Dusudra Napishtim is his son, the flood survivor. Exactly. So this wisdom text is directly linked, in their own tradition, to those huge flood narratives that pop up later. It all connects.
Okay, so from wisdom, let's move to the big epics. the grand narratives. And you can't talk about ancient stories without talking about Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Its roots go back to Sumerian poems, maybe around 2100 BCE. But these separate stories eventually got woven together into the Akkadian epic we know best. The most complete versions we have were actually found in King Ashurbanipal's library from the 7th century BCE.
Right, Gilgamesh. It's fundamental. It tackles the big questions, doesn't it? Ambition, friendship, loss, the search for meaning, mortality. The story starts with Gilgamesh. He's part god, part human, king of Uruk, but he's kind of a tyrant. So the gods create Enkidu, this wild man, to challenge him. But Enkidu gets civilized, interestingly, by a temple prostitute named Shamhat. Then he and Gilgamesh become best friends, inseparable. They go on adventures, like killing the monster Humbaba in the cedar forest.
Standard heroic stuff, slaying monsters.
Sort of, yeah. But then things take a turn. They anger the goddess Ishtar, kill the bull of heaven she sends, and as punishment, the gods decree Enkidu must die. And he does, through illness. Gilgamesh is utterly devastated. This loss completely changes him. He becomes obsessed with death, terrified of it. So he goes on this massive quest to find Nabishtin, remember him, the flood survivor, hoping to learn the secret of eternal life.
The same Utnapishtim whose father wrote the instructions.
The very same. But Utnapishtim tells him, basically forget it. Life, which you look for, you will never find. For when the gods created man, they let death be his share. Immortality is for the gods alone. Gilgamesh fails the test, staying awake for 6 days and 7 nights, and even loses a magical plant that grants youth to a snake. Classic. So he goes back to Uruk, empty-handed in a way, but he looks at the city walls he built and realizes that is his legacy, his immortality.
Wow. So it's really about coming to terms with being human, with mortality, finding meaning in what you leave behind.
Exactly. It's profound. And that's why it's considered such a foundational work. Gilgamesh is kind of the prototype for later heroes, like Heracles, maybe. And the influence, it's massive.
Yeah.
Especially in the Hebrew Bible.
Right. You mentioned connections before. Can you elaborate on those?
Sure. The Garden of Eden story has echoes of Enkidu and Shamhat, created from soil, lives in nature, tempted by a woman, covers nakedness, leaves his wild home. Even the serpent stealing the plant later on. Though importantly, Enkidu blesses Shamhat in the end, which is quite different from Eve's fate. There are parallels in Ecclesiastes too. Some scholars think Siduri's advice to Gilgamesh was directly borrowed. And there's a very rare proverb about a triple-stranded rope found in both.
And the flood, that's the big one, isn't it?
That's the most undeniable link. The flood story in Gilgamesh, told by Utnapishtim, matches the Genesis story of Noah so closely point for point, same order that almost everyone agrees the Genesis version derives from the Mesopotamian one. Utnapishtim's story itself is also found in an earlier epic called Atrahasis. It's a very old, widespread story in that region.
Incredible. So Gilgamesh really casts a long shadow. You mentioned Homer, Alexander the Great too.
Yeah, scholars see thematic parallels with the Iliad and Odyssey. And the legends around Alexander the Great, particularly his quest for the Fountain of Life, seem directly inspired by Gilgamesh's search for immortality. The idea resonates.
Okay, this is fascinating. We've seen visual stories, wisdom, epics grappling with huge themes. But when did stories become just stories? You know, fiction for entertainment, where everyone knew it wasn't true?
That's a great question, and actually a tricky one. Because, as I mentioned, the ancient Mesopotamians didn't really have words that cleanly map onto our myth versus fiction. For many of these texts, like Gilgamesh or creation myths, the audience was probably meant to believe they were true accounts, or at least symbolically true.
So where does that leave us looking for the first just-for-fun story?
Well, a really strong contender is an Akkadian tale called The Poor Man of Nippur. It dates to around 1500 BCE.
And it's basically a trickster tale, a comedy almost. It's about this guy, Ninurta. He's poor, lives in Nippur. He tries to give the mayor a goat as a gift, hoping for favor, but the mayor insults him and throws him out. So Ninurta swears he'll get revenge 3 times.
And he does, in increasingly clever and funny ways. It's got great comedic timing, even now. First, he borrows fancy clothes and a chariot, pretends to be a royal messenger delivering gold. He uses a trick with birds escaping a chest to accuse the mayor of theft, beats him up, and makes the mayor pay him compensation. Then he comes back, disguised as a doctor, lures the mayor into a dark room pretending to treat him, then ties him up and beats him again. For the 3rd time, he gets someone to distract the mayor's guards, hides under a bridge, and ambushes the mayor when he's alone, beating him senseless.
Okay, that definitely sounds like entertainment. So why is this considered fiction, specifically?
Because it has, as scholars put it, no supernatural or otherwise obviously unrealistic elements. It's grounded in everyday life, albeit exaggerated for comic effect. Ancient audiences probably read it or heard it the same way we'd watch a sitcom or read a funny short story, assuming it was made up, fictional. It's likely older than the Egyptian tale of two brothers, which is often cited as very early fiction.
So it tells us that pretty early on, people needed stories not just for meaning or morals, but just to laugh, to enjoy a clever plot. Maybe even a bit of social satire, the little guy getting one over on the powerful mayor?
Exactly. It shows that range of human narrative impulse was there early on. Entertainment, humor, social commentary is all part of the package.
We should also probably give a quick nod to things like the Idaba texts from Sumeria, right? Around 1600 BCE. These were apparently like school texts for kids, moralistic, but also humorous, learning exercises.
Yeah, even education involved storytelling. It just shows how fundamental narrative is to, well, everything human.
What a journey. We've gone from these incredibly ancient, possibly spiritual images on a cave wall in Indonesia through practical and moral advice in Shuruppak, wrestled with death and meaning in Gilgamesh, and ended up with the trickster getting revenge in Nippur. It's quite a span.
It really is. And if we zoom out, anthropologically speaking, what you see is that all these forms, myth, wisdom, epic, entertainment, they were all essential. They were the tools early humans used to understand everything. The cosmos, themselves, how to live together, how to make sense of loss, how to just be human. Storytelling was and is fundamental to organizing society and navigating existence. It's the software our species runs on, in a way.
So here's something to leave you, our listeners, thinking about. What does it really mean that some of our oldest stories, going back 50,000 years or more, are about dealing with power imbalances, seeking wisdom, confronting loss, trying to find immortality? What does that tell you about the core human desires, the core human fears? Because looking back this far, it seems like maybe they haven't changed all that much, have they?